She cannot put her video. Now only her video is there.
Yeah.
No, even last.
Ah, yeah, it is share screen.
Okay, screen sharing coming up.
Very nice.
We can see
Okay.
all this over, two times over. Monkey is gone. Confusion over.
They are not monkeys, they are chimpanzees.
Acha, okay, this is done.
Oh,
Yeah. So we're starting with ethnography today.
ethnography.
Okay, so I'm going to just take for the first 15 minutes, then Seema will start with the unit 4. All right. So basically, ethnography, as it says, writing about people. This is one of the research methods. We talked about observation method, experiment method, and all that, right? So ethnography is one of the research methods. So that is writing about people. What they do is they go and they study people's life by living with them for 1 or 2 years and learning all the intricacies of life. See, this is like one perfect solution for that collection of data problems that we all talked about, right? That all these things that it is very superficial for us to collect data through questionnaires and through observations and all, because there is a lot of other things that is happening on the background. There is a lot of emotional aspects, there is a lot of background stories, there is so many things, which cultural things which contribute to multiple things that we learn. I mean, we exhibit the behavior that we exhibit is a combination of a multiple elements of the society, which becomes a behavior in a person and it gets exhibited. But we can't take whatever is the face value of that behavior and collect data and do a research on it, because a lot of intricacies need to be understood, and how to do it, we have to do it through ethnography. So basically you go and start living with those people and living and doing the things that they do, living and becoming a part of their society, and doing their rituals, doing their day-to-day activities, building relationships, and then understanding from the inside how the entire thing works and why people behave the way they behave. So for that, they must be fluent in the language of the people. It makes no sense for them to go there and people all around them are talking all sorts of things, full of lot of data he's getting, but he's not able to understand anything. So that language fluency is very important. To study daily life over a long period of time, usually stays in a specific location such as a village or a town, and must establish mutual trust with full range of local people. So if nobody in that society trusts this guy, even if he is living amongst them, it's not going to make any difference, because they won't build relationships with him and they won't divulge the details of their intricate relationships or intricate social and cultural things. So it is important for him to build mutual trust with the people, and all types of people, not only the for want of a better example, not only the panchayat head or not only the zamindars, but he should be able to build trust with every person in that society in every walk of life. That is the main crux of ethnography. This is a picture to, like, previously we have read in multiple history books that how people used to go and live amongst like the westerners, especially they used to go and live in islands where it has not been touched by any kind of modern thing, and they learn the ways of their life, they learn what moves them, what is their spirituality, what is their way of life. So this is how, see, they do what they do. All these guys are doing something with a pot and a stick. This guy is also sitting with them and doing just that. Okay, so this is a slide to explain to you as to why it is important for us to do ethnography. So if you can see over here, if we are talking about, if you're doing research about people with one arm, okay, if you see situational, where there is a new parent is already always holding a child in one arm. So only one arm is available for the new parent to work her things. Okay, so that is situational thing. And then there is temporary, somebody who's had a fracture in an arm, then he also has only one arm for a few months. Okay, but a person who is has lost an arm in an accident, or who didn't have an arm as from his birth, then that person has a permanent situation of not living with one arm, and he does everything with the only the other arm. So now if you ask me, who amongst all these three can actually give you all these issues and problems relating to one arm person, and that means we will obviously choose the permanent person who has only one arm for the entire life, and not the person who's been only 3 months in an arm injury, or a new parent only occasionally or situationally she also becomes like a one arm person. So like that, ethnography, that's why it is important for us, because it is like actually understanding from the perspective of of the people, by living inside and getting the actual permanent and stable way, I mean the actual issue as it is, and who have lived through that and who have experienced those problems, and getting it out of their mouth is actually why ethnography is very important. All right. So this is traditional versus modern ethnography. Okay. So historically, we've been using ethnography for a lot of anthropological research. When you say anthropology, you would have always seen, no, those from monkey, then it was walking bent man, and then it started walking straight. So basically, anthropology follows the evolution of human beings, and most of the time it is digging deep into history, digging deep into all those societies, all those villages which have not been touched by modernity, to actually understand how the evolution is happening, how the social structures are happening. So anthropological research maximum uses a lot of ethnography to understand how it happened and what happened, because there is no way for us to just understand. Maybe sometimes we have some books and textbooks and literature which we can read on them, but they like to go and research in those islands to understand islands in the sense in those societies, to understand how things moved on from the tribal nature to the modern nature. So, in modern ethnography, the focus has just slightly changed, wherein that now the focus is not discovery, the focus is conservation, right? They are so worried about the globalization and the assimilation of all these modern forces, that they are worried that we are losing cultures which have been developed over thousands and thousands of years. So now the focus is more on a conservatory focus, as against the discovery and focus which we had in a traditional ethnography thing. So any no points for guessing what movie this is, but I thought this is a very uh, very perfect way of showing you what ethnography is all about. First, we have our researchers who go out there. I mean, of course, Grace out here is a biologist, although also, but the point is that the guy next to him, next to Grace, he is actually an anthropologist. They are interested in the study of cultures and all that. So he go. This is the famous movie Avatar. So they go out there and they're collecting samples, and they're trying to learn and understand from the outside how the whole thing works. But the point is that they're not able to get much from that. So what they do is they send a man inside, and they make Jack Sully actually learn the ways of these people by staying with them, by dressing like them, by learning their methods and all these things. So because this is how anthropology works, then from inside he's able to learn, like you remember that scene where they are touching each other's forehead, and they say I see you. And when you say I see you, it does not mean that you're physically seeing, it just means that I understand what you're feeling, I understand what you're going through, I understand what kind of a person you are. If you just see it from the outside, I see you means just like physically seeing. But in the movie, it was a very important scene where He understands how emotional things work in the Omaticayan tribe in the Avatar. All right. Then what we do, we go and try to teach them our ways, and then they kick us out. That is what the story is about. But the point is that this is exactly how anthropology, ethnography works. Famous example being Avatar. Now we're going into, before we go into types, I would like to read about the steps in anthropological methods. See, the steps are as usual. First thing is you collect your data and you first learn about the society or the culture from the outside by the literature. There are a lot of books which have been written on the history of the place, on the a lot of novels would have been written. There are a lot of literature or data which is already available to us, which this person actually learns. The person who's going to become part of the tribe will actually learn about all these things, read about all these things, and then already he identifies those things which he wants to actually collect data on. So first of all, the research itself, first it has to happen in a structured manner. So he identifies those variables which he wants to research on. Although he will be inside and understand all the elements, he will be focusing on certain variables. So that is important. Then he goes into the cultural immersion. So he go even few years, sometimes people go in and stay in for many years before they come, finish their research in that particular tribe or that particular society. Then gaining informants. Okay, sometimes you cannot be a part of every circle which is in that society. So what you do is you befriend one person from that other circle, and you make him your informant. So he is a natural member of that circle of people in that culture. Okay, and so you make friends with one fellow and you tell him, you tell me, they won't allow me to be a part of that circle, can you tell me whatever is happening over there, like that. And that informant brings another informant. Like that they make a chain of informants. Because it is, if you say they have to build trust with everybody in the society, it's actually impossible for them to build the trust with everybody and every circle in the society. So wherever, if they build a trust with one person, circle, they start getting other informants from different sections of people inside that culture, and they become informants and they start giving data to the our ethnographer. Okay, then afterwards, after all this is done, different types of data are collected and all, the data analysis of course happens, and after that the theory is developed by the researcher. So that is how ethnography actually happens, the steps of ethnography. So the methods of ethnography, there are multiple types of ethnography. So this is like simple macro ethnography and micro ethnography. Macro is basically looking at everything in the larger picture, the bird's eye view kind of a thing, the entire British, the English, the Indians, like the research is done in a very broad cultural perspective. That is macro ethnography. Micro ethnography is nothing but very small culture, not going by big things. They're just going for, like, hostel of the homeless, the nursing practice in intensive care unit. It is so specific, it is so small, it is only within that small range of things that he is doing the ethnography. So like that, anything could be a small micro level also, it could be in a macro level also. All right. Then etic and emic. Okay. Now, this is an example, but what is emic perspective and etic perspective? See, in emic perspective is the ethnographic research approach to the way the members of the given culture perceive their world. The emic perspective is usually the main focus of ethnography. Okay, that means the emic means the one, the local people's preference, the local people's perspective is taken into consideration. That is the emic perspective. And etic perspective is how the outsider's perspective is given more preference, or the outsider's perception is given more preference. So here if you see, there are two two international brands, the McDonald's and Starbucks. If you see EMIC, that is, they are giving preference to the localites and their choices. So EMIC is our McDonald's changes the menu in whichever city or whichever country that they are having their shop. So depending on that country, the menu will change. That means they are more concerned with the EMIC perspective, the perspective of the local people. But Starbucks, okay, menu doesn't adapt to other countries. They have a standard menu. No matter where they open the shop in the world, they will have a standard menu. So many beverages will be served, so many food items will be served, and that will be standard across various countries. All right, there might be a less or more, but actually there is a standardized menu that which they have. So they are more like ethic perspective. That is, the outsider's preference is actually given to the local people. That is Starbucks. All right, so I think this is very clear what is ethic and emic perspective of ethnography. And then uh, okay, so before we go to symbols. See, what does the ethnographer actually focus on? Not only on people. We are talking so much about social psychology. We cannot just think, he's not going to go inside and just keep talking to all the people. He is going to notice multiple things. He's going to notice what kind of symbologies is used, what kind of pictorial representations are happening, what kind of dresses they are wearing, what kind of food they eat. So there are so many symbolic data which he can collect, which he can infer from. For example, this is our famous Indus Valley civilization. uh, uh, Here, just by seeing the symbol, they can understand that the Indus Valley people have actually seen horses, have seen have seen stags, have seen elephants, have seen bulls, and they've also seen rhinoceros. Although nowadays, if you see the Indus Valley area, there is no chance of rhinoceros living over there, but then apparently they have seen it that time. So just by seeing those symbols, they are able to understand that this was there once before, right? So symbols are very powerful, and ethnographer is very vigilant for all these kind of subtle symbols and patterns which he can infer data from about this culture. Then there is situational reduction. Okay, so when you say situational reduction, what they're doing actually is taking one situation and reducing it to the micro level and trying to understand from where it started. All right, see, it says that refers to the view of ethnographers that social structure and social dynamics emerge from and may be reduced analytically to the accumulated effects of micro situational interactions. Put another way, the cause. Okay, anyway, so that means if you reduce everything from the top level, whichever looks very big and gigantic, if you keep on reducing, going back and understanding what happened, what was the trigger, then what happened. So they go backwards and they try to go to the lowest level and understand where the trigger has happened, how many little incidents put together became this big incident. So from they go backwards and they try to understand that little incidents that are happening in a day-to-day basis, which are actually put together becoming this big issue later on after so many days. So that is situational reduction. Okay, and cultural patterning. Of course, cultural patterning, as the name itself suggests, just understanding what is the pattern of the culture, um, in the sense, understanding what kind of concepts that they have about various matters, then the learning process, how they go about learning things, what are the different methodologies that they have, the sanctioning processes. Sanctioning in the sense, what are the rules and regulations which are formally rules and regulations, and there are what are those beliefs and those superstitions and those other things which are not formal but are actually like rules. They are there in the society and people follow them without having any kind of thing pushed at them. So that is cultural patterning, understanding information about how the whole dynamics works in the society. Then tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge, in the sense, it just is it's the ulta of explicit. So explicit knowledge is what is very clearly available and very widely available, like pictures, documents, books, manuals. They're all explicit. Okay, so what is happening in the society, whatever is explicit, is easy, but which we can do in observation method also, sit away from them and notice, and we can learn from that. But the ethnographer is looking for tacit knowledge, tacit in the sense which is very elusive, like emotions, personal knowledge, that unspoken things that are happening in the society, the different experiences the society has been going through, which is actually contributing to certain behaviors, the hidden knowledge within the cultural background. So that is tacit. We don't know what are all these things from the outside, we can't see, but it is like, it's in their blood, it is in their generation by generation, their grandparents, their parents and all know, through culture they will be bringing one knowledge in the family, and that will be influencing so much into the decision making and the behavior of people. So those knowledges you just can't understand by superficially observing these people. That is what ethnographers are very looking for, is this tacit knowledge, which is very under the thing, yeah. So these are the different types of information that our ethnographers are looking for, and that is why ethnography has become a major part of anthropology and social psychology, because that helps us understand all these subtle things, all these tacit things, which are which we can't easily infer from the outside data. Okay, so having said this, can everybody go and do this, all different types of, you know, methods of, experimentation? Everybody has their own way of doing things. Like everybody can't spend 2-3 years of their time with a particular society, or everybody can't do the observation method. Everybody can't do experimental method. And if you see individually, each of us will be doing things in a different experiments. But what is happening is there is no wholesome picture of it. Okay, there is so much of work which has gone into by so many thousands of people in different countries. Okay, and there is actually a lot of data and a lot of analysis available out there, but we are not putting them together and utilizing it. And that is why we come to this beautiful thing called meta analysis. Meta, so meta, as the name itself suggests, is like mega, even bigger than that is meta. What they do is they take the researches of all the different types of people. So today I want to learn about some topic, I want to do research on some topic. Now instead of just jumping into it and doing a research about it, what I'm going to do is collect all those researches which has already been done by many people and line all of them up. Okay, now if you see over here, Graham has done so much research. Wilkin has done so much research. Another Wilkin has done a lot of research. So the same topic, different researchers have done so much of research. If you see, they're all overlapping. So a lot of data and analysis is already available. So what the researchers do nowadays is, they don't go for a fresh research. First they collect all of these things, put together and understand, what is the crux of it, and make a mega analysis based on all the other analysis that has already been done. So that is called meta analysis, pool of information from all available studies. That is meta analysis. Nowadays this is taking a lot of preference, because for so many hundreds of years, lot of researchers have done a lot of research which is unnecessarily getting wasted, because they are all small in nature, but put together it actually gives us a lot of answers. So searching for our answers in the researches which has already been done is the meta analysis. Okay, so this is Myers in 1991. As this is as early as brand new as 1991. Just a few years back they have started doing this, and they find that there is a lot of information which they can gather from this. So yeah, so that brings us to the end of the whole thing about research methods and observation methods. Basically what they're trying to say is that scientific procedures and strictness is actually creating a lot of problems for social psychology, but in their own way they're trying to bring in as much structure as possible, and also they try to use methods like ethnography to ensure that the essence of the matter or the essence of social psychology is not lost in when they're trying to make social psychology as an empirical science, a measurable science. And so they there is a lot of research methods and different types are done so that they can include both the essence of social psychology as well as make it into a proper science and make it into a wonderful evaluative process. So that is about methods of social psychology. End of chapter. Anybody has any doubts, feel free to ask.
No, it was good.
Cultural patterns. Babro, you want me to tell you about cultural patterns?
Yeah, in detail.
Yes. See, cultural patterns basically is just to see what kind of patterns are there in the culture, in the sense, concepts in the, when we say, like, you know, if we wrap the, in like, if Prahash is going out with his girlfriend in a Valentine's Day, okay, so he will wrap his gift in red color box, and you know, red color flowers and or red color hearts and all that. Okay, that is the cultural pattern of India, where we give in red color. But if we do the same thing in Korea, if we give a red color wrapped box to anybody, it means that that person is actually, you're telling that person that from today onwards we are going to be an enemy. Okay, so that is nothing but cultural pattern, right? So in India it means love, there it means your enemies. So like that, that is a pattern which is there in the cultural scenario. So to understand that concept, we need to map what is happening in the culture. Okay, apart from that, learning processes. um, okay, how do people in the culture learn what is happening? Like if we today we have a thing like, what do you say, Sankranti festival. Okay, now it is not a structured way that the festival is done, right? In my family we do pongal, chakra pongal, vada and payasam. In my neighbor's family, they which is a Kannada family, they do that ellu sakare and all those packets and all, and they give all of their neighbors. In Tamil Nadu, they will keep one pot and they will put fresh grains and they will make it actually flow out, and that will become a that is the festival. So if you see, how did we learn all these things? Why do we do it the way we do it? Because we learned it from somebody, right? We learned it from our society, we learned it from our parents, grandparents. So the learning process, how does people in the society learn what the entire society does? That's a learning process. And the concept was about that, you know, the gift concept. So each concept which is being dealt with has to be understood as to how this thing happens in the society. And sanctioning process in the sense, there are rules and regulations which people follow, right? In my apartment there are rules that on a Sunday we should not have any drilling or anything. People should be peaceful in their houses. It is a known rule. Okay, so everybody follows that rule. But is also that, you know, there is no rules about people coming and going as they please on a Sunday. Yet, you know, most of them, you know, they don't do that kind of a thing on a Sunday, because there has been lot of uproar about noises and parties and all that is happening. And everybody understands that in this RMZ Galleria, everybody wants peace and quiet on Sunday. So what they do is, there is no rules, but still we don't do those kind of activities which creates a lot of noise on a Sunday, just to ensure that, you know, everybody is in a happy place. So that is like sanctioning process. There is legally, there are certain rules and regulations that people follow in a culture, but there are certain underlying belief systems and underlying superstitions. There's underlying things which people follow without anybody enforcing those rules and regulations, is also what is a part of a cultural pattern. For an example, like one I read somewhere that, you know, for a long time, people, long many generations, people in one particular family would always cut the tail and cut the total head of the fish. Okay, and they will only use the middle part for cooking. Okay, so this guy also used to do it because his mother used to do it, because their grandmother used to do it. But the point is that Later on, after a lot of research, he understood that during those days, the size of the pan was only so much, and for a fish to fit to totally inside it, it was very difficult. So they used to chop off the tail and chop off the head. There is no particular reason as to why the tail or the head has to be chopped. But then it is, although now the pan sizes have become big and although everything has become big, they're still following that unsaid rule of cutting it this way, chopping off the head and the tail and using only the middle part. So that is all, these are all rules which a household is following, and like that the culture is following based on certain backstories that has happened before. So this is all sanctioning processes. So that is what cultural patterning is, understanding why people do the things that they do based on how the patterns have developed over a long period of time. That is cultural patterning. Okay, anybody else?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And this is also called existential belief.
Yeah.
There are different kinds of belief in which it comes because we follow something, but we don't know what does that mean to.
No.
It's just
Prakash,
out
it's
of the
only an
topic.
example. Don't get excited about that girlfriend on Valentine's Day. Okay.
All right. Next time we should use that he is going for a date with his wife.
Yeah. Or for a school admission, we'll use.
I lowered the volume to be safe.
Problems either ways. Okay, so now we are going to Unit 4, Current Trends in Social Psychology and Ethical Issues. I think this is a very relevant topic to all of us. It's a very small
Yeah.
topic, and it's so relevant because, how, what are the trends that have led to where we are today in psychology, and what are the, as psychologists, what are our ethics when we do our research. So let's look at that, and if you can think of examples, just note it down. Maybe we can use last 5 minutes. I'm not sure if I can complete this chapter today, but let's see. I don't want to really
Tomorrow.
prolong it. Sorry.
No, we have tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Do it
ठीक है,
around
done.
there.
Done. So I won't rush into it. Aram se karte hain, so we'll see how it goes. Okay. Now, so how about the trend in psychology? So in the beginning, psychology was about it had only the cognitive orientation. So psychology meant about cognition. That's all. That's how it was. Whenever we talked about psychology, it was about at a cognition level. So that's not that was the limit, or that was the scope of psychology. And eventually it evolved into various things, and then the central concept of attitude came in. Okay, and then slowly and steadily, social psychology. So earlier it was just at an individual level. Slowly and steadily it evolved into a social psychology, where we started studying smaller groups. By Kurt Lewin, he started the study of small groups. So from an individual, we started studying how in a group people function and work together, right? So that is where group dynamism and all those concepts started. Influence of a leadership. What were the various leadership styles? How was the leadership done? What is the productivity, a different style, of leadership productivity? What about communication patterns? And how about the individual judgments? All those things started coming into the picture. So that's where it started evolving from an individual into groups, and that was where the need of social psychology came into existence. Now, in this chapter, what we will be doing is we'll be seeing the application part of social psychology. How is social psychology relevant to us? First of all, why are we even studying it as a separate subject? How does it relate to us? Is it just at a theoretical level, or is there any applicability or any application that social psychology has? So in this chapter, we will be doing, seeing how it is applied in various cases and situations. Okay, various aspects, like in terms of population psychology, okay, in terms of health psychology, environmental psychology, legal systems. So all these things, psychology also has a major role to play in all these things. Imagine the environment, when we are studying the environment, or our legal system, or the population. that is also when psychology is, really, really essential. So as a psychologist, you are preparing to become psychologist, you know that the scope is really vast. You don't have to work only with, a certain a set of people. You don't have to get into only counseling. You can do a whole lot of other things depending on your interest. In fact, based on your background, you can club it with psychology and you can work on it. For example, if somebody is, let's say, into sports, he's a sports enthusiast, you can club sports with psychology into sports psychology. There are lawyers. There's this, I'm forgetting the name of this very, a prominent lawyer. He does sports law. So he does all these contracts of IPL players and, all their this thing. So he looks at the legal part of it. So now careers have developed in such a way that you can use your existing knowledge, and you can club it with your passion, and you can club, basically these two things and take it up. So as psychologists, you can use your existing knowledge, add it up with psychology and use it in that area. That is when you will start enjoying it the most. So here we will look at some of the factors in this chapter. Okay. So here we are also going to be understanding how health, in terms of health, how psychology comes into the picture, and multicultural perspective, and so on and so forth. Okay. And finally, in 1960, again, the individual cognitive processes, was neglected. They said that too much, in the 1960s, they thought that too much focus was happening only at a cognitive level. So when we spoke of psychology, it was restricted to only at a cognitive level. And also a lot of too heavily, there was a lab setting or experimentation method that was happening. So all these things, I mean, this is again the evolution and how it has panned out today. Modern social psychology has a much broader application, right? So down here in modern social psychology, what we are seeing it, how can we apply psychology to a real life scenario, to the real life? That is what is most important for us, to everyday life. Okay, so that is why the application part is very important. That's why for anything, whenever we are studying any subject, how, like, what is in it for me is very important. How do I apply it? The same thing goes for even, let's say, in education system. If a learner knows that, I am learning something which I can apply, this knowledge which I'm getting in the classroom or something is useful for me in today's life to live, to, to look at, to have a different perception or something like that. So if I know that I can apply whatever I'm learning, that is when it, I get motivated to read about it. So here in this context, we are now seeing how we can start applying psychology as students of psychology, as psychologists, okay, in the social context, right? So again, remember I started off with the cognitive focus. Again, cognitive approach slowly started picking up momentum. That was also something which was considered, along with experimental and behavior approaches. And the new trends the new trends now are social biology, evolutionary social psychology, okay, and so on and so forth. A lot of other things have come up. So always the demand for the practical angle of psychology is more important than the theoretical part of psychology. So whenever you're talking about psychology, how does it apply is more relevant and more appealing to understand and learn than the theoretical part of it, right? So that's what it is. 1917 plus 1980s saw applied social psychology. So Weyand said that applied social psychology is the utilization of social psychology principles, research methods in the real world setting to solve a variety of individual as well as social problems. So the definition is really good. It says that, why are we even doing this applied social psychology, and why are we, so we use the research methods, we use all the principles of social psychology, we will club it together and use it in the real world, okay? And that is what will solve a large number of problems of individuals as well as a group of people. Okay, so now let us look at applications of social psychology. The first one is the population psychology. Now, why do we need psychology when we are trying to understand the population composition? Okay, why is that important? So population psychology is the effect of rapid expansion of population on the planet. Okay, we all know that, India is number 2, right? And will soon become number 1 at the rate at which we are expanding. So this is very important to study and understand from a psychological point of view, because this population expansion can have a lot of, it can have a multiple effect, ill effect of population explosion or population expansion on generally the human life as such. It's a threat to our living. Okay, so that is why it's very important to even, understand and learn more about it. So, and it is very, very important when we start controlling this kind of expansion or explosion of population, right? So now, why the whole study will be about why, what is the reason why, we are expanding at the rate at which we are. So a very interesting example is given of where, Sagan in 1989, he explains why it is so important to understand this whole concept of, population psychology. He calls it the mathematical phenomenon in terms of secret of Persian chessboard. So he compares it to this particular, it's called the secret of Persian chessboard. So what happens is, so he's comparing this whole, why it's just so important to understand the population psychology. He's comparing it to this particular legend. He's saying that, there was a grand vizier of of Persia. He invented a chessboard, a game of chess. It has 64 squares, right? So now the king was so pleased with him. He said, wow, this looks like a really good game, and this looks like a really good thing. Now, in return for this, I'm very happy with what you have done. I really like this, game. It looks really good. The chessboard looks really good. What can I give you in return for this? So this clever inventor, he said that nothing, he told the king, nothing much. I just want a few grains of wheat. Okay, so he says, so the king was like, "Arey wah, saste mein tal gaye, and this is really good. For such an invention, he's only asking for grain of wheat." So then he said, "Okay, but how I want it is, for the first square, I want 1 grain, and then I want to double it up in the second one. So the first square, I get 1 grain. Second square, I get 2. The third one, I get 4." King was like, "Okay, fine, you just take, that's the pretty, he was thinking to himself, oh, that's really very, hardly anything to pay for what he has invented, right?" But it so turned out that finally, when he gave that, those many grains, it turned out to be 75 billion metric tons of grains, which was the entire granary of the kingdom. So that is, so he has used, this Sagan has used this particular, phenomena to say that this is the impact of population. When the population grows, we don't realize how it impacts, the society, but this is how it impacts. So he says that it is not actually a mathematical, growth. It is a geometrical growth which happens, right? So what happens is, and it's an exponential growth that we see. So population growth is always seen not in terms of mathematical growth, but it's seen as an exponential growth. And the worst is that we don't even realize, because it happens gradually. It happens in such a way, it happens with the passage of time in such a way that we don't understand, how that kind of expansion in population impacts, the various things. So that is why it is very, very important to understand, how the population is growing. What is the psychology of people? Why is it that in some regions the population grows at a much? Why is it that, for example, in India, it is very important to understand it. It's very important also to curtail the population growth, because we know that population causes a lot of demand on the resources, the natural resources of the land. So it is very important to understand. And again, it is a very, for example, in India, how does the psychology work? Especially how was it a generation or two back? It was like, more the number of children those are born, more number of hands those are going to be helping us to be the breadwinner or get more income. That is what was the concept, right, in India. And that is why they kept, or it was like, acha Bhagwan ki deen hai, jitne bache paida ho gaye, that kind of a thing. So these are all, what are these? These are ultimately the mindset, right, of people, how we look at it. And then, so that is why it is very important that we just cannot let it go all over the place, right? We can't do it, like we cannot say that, okay, that's the Indian culture, okay, that's the way it is. You don't use birth control, methods. Let children be born. That's not how we look at it, right? Once we understand that this is the psyche of the people, this is how people think, Indians think, or some set of people think, we really have to do something about it to stop this kind of growth, because it has a very it has an impact on the economy. So that is why it is very important to study it. I don't know, somebody sent a comment, I'll see that later. Right. So that is what it is about. That is why it is very important to understand how it is. And if it continues to grow at the rate at which it is growing, then again it eats away into the development of the country. That is why it is very important. And that's why, hum do, hamare do, and those kind of things are, done. And in places like China and all that, they support only one child, the education and all of that. So those are the steps that need to be taken at a government level, at a macro level, to stop this kind of an, expansion, because again, it has a effect, ill or adverse effect on the economy, right? So that's why it is very important to understand where the point of view of where people are coming from, right? So changing the attitude of people, enhancing the sensitivity, all those things, all those points will come under this. So that's why it's very important for psychologists to help to increase the quality, sex education, all those things are very, very important, to understand where, the mindset of the people, and to change that mindset from one to the other, right? So do I read this or shall I just move on? All right. So I think I'll take up one more point and then maybe we can just open for discussion. The second one is health psychology. Okay. Now we all know that, when we talk about health, that studies, health psychology talks about it studies the psychological processes affecting the development, prevention, and treatment of physical illness. Now here we know very clearly that when we are talking about a physical illness, a lot of it comes from mental illness, right? That is why we are talking, when we talk about psychology, we also have to keep that in mind. See, a lot of fear, anxiety, insecurity, all those things also lead to, you feeling, whatever, you're getting into a more, it starts affecting your health, right? You start feeling body pains, you start feeling that, your heart is palpitating and all that. So all those things are again affected. So mental health here, to understand, like again from a psychologist point of view, it is very important to understand, because it again deteriorates the health of a person. It affects the physical health of a person. So here they have given things like they've talked about a study of Lieberman and Chaikin, women. In the study of this particular women said they were given some bogus information about medical research that found a link between caffeine and breast disorder. So they were just given, some bogus information. It was not true. Okay, they were told that, there is a correlation between breast cancer and caffeine, the consumption of caffeine. Okay, so the threat is either low or high. Women for whom the threat was most relevant, like who used to drink coffee regularly, so those people are less likely to believe this particular thing as either high threat or low threat, and compared to women who do not drink coffee, right? The study showed that how personal relevance and self-interest interact with affecting people's response to informational messages. So basically this whole study shows that, so these women were said that, people who consume more coffee or caffeine have higher chances of breast cancer. So they are the ones, because it serves their interest. They like coffee. So they are like, no, we don't want to go with this particular study. So again, you see how, psychology comes into play here. So when you're even giving them a health this thing that is going to adversely affect your health, they refuse to believe it because their psychology or whatever, they love coffee. And so they think that, no, if I cannot stop drinking coffee. So they disbelieve the whole study. So that is how it is, related. So these are, I mean, different experiments or tests or this thing done to understand the relation between health, mental and physical health. So again, talking about stress, stress, there are lots of reasons of stress, worry and anxiety. It is occupational threat, uh, family threat, complaints from a spouse, pressure from a supervisor. So all these are different types of things that people are stressed about: work related stress, stress from your spouse, stress from your family, stress from your work environment. So all these are different types of stress and how they start adversely impacting the physical health of a person. So that is why, again, it is very important if you understand what is the cause of that stress. And that is why there is so much of studies which are conducted, because if there's so much stress, it starts impacting or hindering the productivity of the general population, right? The productive population, or the ones who actually, the working population, their productivity goes down if it is the stress levels are really, really high. So here they're just deriving a correlation between mental health and physical health, right? And it starts affecting your immune system. If there's too much stress, if the stress is high. And then they talk about immunology, okay, where it is an approach to study the stress, emotional and behavior reaction, immune system, all of that. So a lot of studies is being done to actually understand the ill effects of this kind of stress, when we have this kind of stress on our body. So also health is affected by various other factors, like the kind of goals that we want to achieve. So there are too many materialistic goals we really want to, so we just, it's a very stressful thing, because to achieve those goals, you keep working harder and harder. And when you do that, you're neglecting a lot of things, like your fitness and your diet, your balanced diet and all of that. And those start impacting your health again, right? Your physical health. So again, things like having a pessimistic point of, if you're a very pessimistic person, again, it starts impacting your health. Or you're an optimistic person, it does well for your physical health also. So they've given different ways in which how the mental health, having a positive frame of mind is much better for a healthier living, or for a more physically fit you, than compared to a pessimistic outlook, right? So again, working hard to achieve does not cause heart attack, okay? But failure to achieve, that is something that changes the self schema of a type A person. So here they're talking about a type A person, where anger, because of anger, or because of not being able to achieve, how that causes the person, that hostility and those kind of things come into a person. So all these things, what are your goals in life, what are your ambitions, what are the way you work, all these things, it's all a mindset, right? That's why they say, you change your mindset, and you become a different person, and you can start doing much better. So that's why all this introspection during the lockdown that people have been doing, right? So these are some of the things which we study in health psychology, okay? And when you talk about the unpleasant life events rather than engaging in self-concealments. Yeah. One more thing is the importance of family and friends when it comes to your mental health. If you have a good social support system, right? And that is when you have, that is when the families and your family and friends, when you're able to vent out, when you're able to talk to them about how, you're not feeling great, someday you're feeling low. That has a positive effect than self-concealment, just keeping within you, right? So again, all this is related to psychology. That's why they say just go, just vent out, just talk to somebody, just listen to somebody. Why are all these concepts there? Because ultimately it leads to your immunity system going down, or your health going down, BP goes down, all of that, or BP goes high. All those things happen to your body when you're not feeling mentally strong, right? So that is what it is. And finally, so when illness strikes, it's a decision making, it's an interpretation, symptom, deciding to take action, coping with the medical procedure, okay? So all of this, accepting, suppose there is some illness that has come your way, and accepting is taking it in the right spirit, doing, suppose there's a setback, let's say there has been a minor accident or something like that, you have to get a surgery done. So having a more positive outlook, taking medication, doing your physiotherapy and all of that. So again, the mindset again heals you faster. That is the whole funda, right? And so basically it all boils down to the attitude a person has or the perception a person has about better personal health by just the enthusiastic kind of thinking. Yeah. So basically all these are here when we are talking about health psychology, we are talking about it in terms of mental health versus the physical health. So these are the two things I think we can talk about. So if anybody else has any views, I think we are already, it's almost 10, right? Yeah. So I think we can stop here today. Guys, anybody else has any views?